The elders used to whisper that I was born broken. Not because I was weak or small, though I was both, but because of my voice. They said the sound that came from my throat was not the sound of an omega, not the sound of a creature meant to serve and be silent. They called it unnatural. They called it dangerous. They called it a curse. I was 12 when I first understood what they meant. I had been singing to myself while fetching water from the river, my voice bouncing against the cliffs and rolling through the valley like a spell. Birds had stopped singing. Even the river seemed quieter, as if listening. I thought it was beautiful until the hunters found me. "Silence, girl," one snapped, his bow slung across his shoulder. His eyes were wide, not with admiration but with fear. "Do you want to enchant us all?" I dropped the water bucket. "I didn't mean." "You never mean it," he spat. "But your voice twists the air. It makes strong wolves falter. It weakens the will. A true omega should soothe with silence, not command with song." That night, the mark of rejection was burned into my skin behind my right ear. A crescent-shaped scar that told every wolf what I was. Unwanted, cast out, untouchable. I became invisible, a ghost walking the edges of the Eastern Pack's land. But my voice never left me. Even when I tried to bury it, it lingered. Sometimes, in the deepest hours of night, I would hum into my pillow, and the shadows themselves seemed to lean closer to listen. Now, years later, at 23, I had learned the art of silence. My boots barely made a sound on the forest path. My breaths were light, careful. My eyes stayed down when others passed me. I had survived by being forgettable. But tonight there would be no hiding. The path ahead opened into a wide clearing. Torches blazed in iron sconces, their light flickering across the massive wooden structure that rose at the clearing's center, the Great Hall. Beyond it, laughter carried through the crisp autumn air. Wolves from all 5 packs were gathering, their scents mingling in a heavy cloud of dominance and belonging. My stomach twisted. Rejected omegas weren't invited to festivals, let alone this one. The Festival of Unity, the most important gathering of the year. I should have been back in my small cabin tending the fire. But my sister Era had insisted. "You'll come with me," she said that morning, her golden eyes fierce. She was everything I wasn't. Strong, confident, beautiful. A healer respected by the pack. "You'll help me with herbs and tonics. No one can object." "I don't belong there," I had whispered. "You belong with me," she snapped, pressing something into my palm. A pendant, our grandmother's. Worn silver, carved into a crescent moon and 3 stars. "Wear this. She always said it would protect you." Now the pendant hung heavy against my chest as I reached the edge of the clearing. My plain gray dress clung to me in the chill air, making me feel even more out of place among the brightly dressed wolves milling outside the hall. "Look," a voice hissed from nearby. "The rejected one dares to come." "Maybe she's here to serve drinks," another snickered. He crawled up my neck. My instinct screamed at me to lower my gaze, to keep walking as if their words were invisible. That was the way of survival. Do not react. Do not exist more than necessary. But then I heard her voice. "Celine." Era pushed through the crowd, her healer's robes a rich blue trimmed with silver thread. She looked radiant, her long dark hair braided with strands of silver. She was my anchor in a storm of hostility. She looped her arm through mine, her touch warm and grounding. "You came," she said softly. "You didn't give me much choice," I muttered, trying not to notice the stares burning into my back. She leaned close. "Hold your head high. You're with me." I tried. But the mark behind my ear throbbed like fire, reminding me what I was. As we stepped toward the Great Hall, my heart thudded against my ribs. Tonight was not just a festival. It was also the night when the Alpha King himself, Kale of the Northern Pack, would be present. A man whispered about in both reverence and fear. The king with storm-gray eyes. The king who had risen to power through blood and fire. The king who had no mate and no equal. I clutched the pendant tighter. If the whispers about my curse were true, what would happen if someone as powerful as him ever heard me sing? The thought made me shiver. And somewhere deep in my bones, a voice I could not silence whispered back, "He will hear you." The great hall swallowed me whole. Hundreds of candles burned in iron sconces, their flames casting golden light over polished wood beams and stone walls. Long tables groaned under the weight of roasted meats, fresh bread, and bowls of fruit. Wolves in human form moved about in fine silks and furs, laughing, drinking, boasting. The air was thick with their scents. Pine, musk, wild earth, dominance. I wanted to disappear. Stay near me, Era murmured, guiding me toward a smaller table near her station where herbs and healing tools were neatly arranged. If anyone needs a tonic or salve, help me. Otherwise, stay invisible. I know the rules, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Her face softened. I just want you safe. Before I could reply, the sound of horns echoed through the hall. Conversations died. The torches flared as if in anticipation. The northern pack had arrived. They entered like shadows spilling across the floor. Dozens of wolves, dressed in black and silver, moved in perfect formation. At their center walked a figure who commanded attention without speaking. Alpha King Kale. He was taller than most, broad-shouldered yet lean, his movements smooth like a predator who never needed to hurry. His hair was dark, his jaw scarred from some old battle. And his eyes, storm gray, cold and unyielding, scanned the room with restless vigilance. Whispers rippled. He isn't wearing his crown. A bad omen. I shrank into my corner, but something inside me stirred. My voice, my curse, pressed against my throat like a bird desperate to escape. Kale took his seat at the high table, expression unreadable. He barely touched the food, his gaze sweeping the hall again and again as though expecting danger. The night moved on. Announcements were made. Trade agreements negotiated. Challenges hinted at but avoided. I busied myself helping Era tend to a wolf who'd drunk too much wine. Then the music began. Drums beat low and steady like the heartbeat of the earth. Flutes sang high, playful and bright. Wolves took to the dance floor, their movements fluid, sensual, primal. Era was swept away by a handsome beta, laughing as he spun her into the circle. I watched from the shadows, pressing my pendant to my lips. I had no place here. And then a voice slurred behind me. Girl. I turned to see Valen, the beta commander of my own pack, towering over me. His eyes were glassy with drink, his breath sour with wine. You're the rejected one, aren't you? He said, his tone sharp with cruelty. I lowered my gaze. Yes, beta. I've heard stories about you. He leaned closer. That your voice is so sweet it silences birds. That it could enchant wolves. That's why Alpha Thorn cast you out, isn't it? He feared you'd ensnare his son. I said nothing. Words would only dig the hole deeper. Valen's grin widened. Sing for us. My throat closed. I don't sing anymore. His hand shot out, gripping my arm like a vice. That wasn't a request, little Omega. He raised his voice. Look here. The Eastern Pack has brought us their cursed Omega. Shouldn't she prove her talent? Laughter rippled through the crowd. Heads turned. Music faded. Sing, rejected one. Someone shouted. Yes. Sing. Another joined. I searched desperately for Era, but she was trapped across the floor, struggling to push through the crowd. Valen dragged me into the center circle meant for honored dancers. Her alpha rejected her because her voice was too dangerous. Shall we test it? Tears stung my eyes as wolves from every pack crowded closer, faces gleaming with cruel amusement. A voice is power, my grandmother used to whisper. When everything else is taken, what remains in your throat can never be stolen. I clutched the pendant, trembling. Sing, Valen demanded, shaking me. The pendant slipped from my hand and clinked against the stone floor. Silence fell over the hall. The air grew heavy, thick with tension. And then a voice cut through the stillness, low and sharp as a blade. This Omega did not consent to perform. The crowd parted and Alpha King Kale stood there, storm-gray eyes fixed on me. Valen froze, his grip loosening. Your Majesty, I was only... Kale's gaze turned colder. Or am I mistaken, Beta? Did she ask to be humiliated? No, sire, Valen stammered, bowing. Kale's eyes shifted to me. And for the first time in my life, someone with power spoke to me as if I mattered. Do you wish to sing Omega? The entire hall held its breath. I should have said no. I should have stayed silent. But my lips parted and in a voice I barely recognized I whispered. I will sing. But only one song. Kale's expression flickered, the first crack in his mask of steel. One song, he repeated, his voice softer now, dangerous in its calm. Then sing. The hall seemed to shrink when Kale spoke. His voice wasn't raised, but it carried through the vast space with ease, like thunder rolling across mountains. Every wolf felt it, an invisible weight pressing down on their shoulders. Alphas stiffened, betas lowered their eyes, even omegas held their breath. Me. My whole body trembled. The Alpha King was staring directly at me. I had heard whispers of his presence, but no story prepared me for this moment. He looked carved from stone, tall and broad-shouldered, his movements sharp yet controlled. His scar, slashing from temple to jaw, should have made him less striking, but instead it made him magnetic, dangerous. And his eyes, storm gray, cold and endless, pinned me in place. "Do you wish to sing Omega?" he asked again. I swallowed hard, the taste of fear bitter in my mouth. Wolves around us exchanged shocked looks. No one asked a rejected Omega what they wished. No one cared. Valen shifted beside me, clearly desperate to repair the situation. He bowed so low his forehead nearly brushed the floor. "Your Majesty, forgive the foolishness. The girl is nothing. She knows her place. We'll escort her out." "Silence," Kale cut him off, his voice as sharp as a blade unsheathed. Valen froze. Kale's eyes didn't move from mine. "Speak." The hall was silent enough to hear the crackle of torches. My heart pounded against my ribs like a caged bird. I wanted to say no. I wanted to flee back to my corner, to fade into the shadows as I always had. But something in his gaze held me captive. It wasn't kindness nor cruelty. It was curiosity. My voice caught in my throat. "I will sing. But only one song." A ripple of shock passed through the crowd. The very idea that a rejected Omega would dare to place conditions, to limit what she would give the Alpha King, was unthinkable. I heard whispers sharp with disbelief. "She defies him. She's mad. She'll be killed for this." But Kale's expression didn't change. If anything, his eyes narrowed, studying me like a puzzle he couldn't quite solve. Then he gave the smallest of nods. "One song," he said quietly. "Then sing." The command wrapped around me like chains. My throat went dry. Era's voice broke through the silence, panicked and desperate. "Celine, don't." She tried to push through the crowd, but betas blocked her path, eager to see what would happen. Kale lifted a hand and she froze mid-step. His voice, though calm, held absolute authority. "The healer will remain where she is." My sister's golden eyes burned with fury, but she dared not disobey. The circle of wolves tightened around me. Every eye watched, some gleaming with cruel amusement, others with morbid fascination. And at the center of it all, Kale sat like a dark god, waiting. I bent to pick up my grandmother's pendant. My fingers shook as I clutched it to my chest, drawing strength from its familiar weight. A voice's power. Her words echoed in my mind. "When everything else is taken, what remains in your throat can never be stolen." I raised my head. And I sang. At first the sound barely escaped me, a trembling note fragile as a cobweb. It hung in the air, soft and uncertain, almost swallowed by the vast hall. A few wolves chuckled under their breath. But then the note deepened. My voice grew stronger, flowing from my chest like a river breaking free of stone. The melody rose and swelled, ancient and haunting, words shaped by memory more than thought. "Sleep, little wolf, beneath the moonlight's glow." The hall stilled. "The stars above will guard you where you go." It was a lullaby, old as the forest. My grandmother had taught it to me in secret, when I was small and frightened of the dark. I had thought it just a comfort song. Now I realized it was more. My voice curled through the air like silver smoke. Wolves shifted uneasily, eyes wide, movements slowing as though the song pressed down on them. Laughter died. Breathing quieted. Valen, who had dragged me here, blinked rapidly, his cruel grin faltering. His grip on my arm loosened until it slipped away completely. But it wasn't him I noticed. It was Kale. The Alpha King leaned forward in his chair, storm-gray eyes locked on me. The hard lines of his face softened, his scar seeming less harsh in the candlelight. For the first time I saw not a ruthless ruler but a man utterly transfixed. I sang louder. "The night is deep, the shadows wide. Yet in your dreams the packs beside." Wolves around the circle swayed, pupils dilated. Some blinked as though waking from a dream, only to fall deeper into the spell. Others wiped tears from their eyes without knowing why. Even the alphas, proud, unyielding leaders, sat frozen, their expressions cracked with awe. Kale looked undone. The storm in his eyes had quieted, replaced with something I didn't recognize. Wonder. For a heartbeat it was just us. The rejected Omega and the Alpha King, bound by something no one else could understand. I finished the final verse. When dawn shall break, the shadows flee. Remember strength that lives in thee. The last note lingered in the hall, shimmering in the silence. Then it faded, leaving nothing but stillness. No one moved. It was as though the world itself had paused, caught in the spell of my voice. Then slowly, like wolves waking from a trance, they stirred. Murmurs filled the air, confusion, fear, amazement. She enchanted us. It's witchcraft. No, it's something else. Kale was the first to speak. His voice was low, rougher than before. What is your name? The question was absurd. Everyone knew me as the rejected one, the cursed Omega. No one asked my name. No one cared. I swallowed. Selene. Selene Moonshade of the Eastern Pack. The way he repeated it sent shivers down my spine. Selene Moonshade. His lips curved slightly. Impressive. A roar of shock swept the hall. The Alpha King had praised me. Me the nothing. The outcast. But before anyone could react further, the doors of the hall burst open with a thunderous bang. A warrior staggered in, blood streaming from his temple. He collapsed to one knee before Kale, gasping. Your Majesty, the Southern rogues. At least 30. They've breached the perimeter. Chaos erupted. Chairs scraped, goblets spilled. Warriors shifted mid-step, bodies tearing into fur and fong. Mothers clutched children, scrambling for safety. Betas shouted orders. Kale rose, his expression hardening into steel. To arms. His voice rolled like thunder, commanding instant obedience. But in the chaos no one looked at me. No one cared what would happen to the Omega who had just bewitched them all. Except Valen. He appeared at my side, his eyes wild, his hand gripping my arm once more. His voice was low, venomous. What did you do? What are you? Fear prickled my skin. I tried to pull away, but his grip was iron. You bewitched the Alpha King, he hissed. Do you have any idea how dangerous that is? And before I could answer, he dragged me toward the shadows of the hall. Valen's grip dug into my arm as he dragged me toward the far wall of the great hall. The chaos of the attack swirled around us. Wolves shifting mid-run, warriors racing to meet the southern rogues spilling through the broken gates. But his eyes were locked only on me. You bewitched them, he spat, his lips curled in a sneer. All of them. Even him. I stumbled, trying to keep my footing as his iron fingers bit into my flesh. I only sang. My words trembled with panic. I didn't mean. You didn't mean? His laugh was harsh and cruel. Look around you, little curse. Alphas frozen like statues, warriors forgetting their blades. You bent them all with nothing but a lullaby. Do you think that's natural? I tried again to yank my arm free, but his strength was overwhelming. The pendant at my throat swung wildly, clinking against my ribs. Please, Beta Valen, I begged. Pie's sister, she needs me. His eyes darkened, fury flashing. Your sister can patch wounds without you. You, however. His grip tightened until I gasped. You are a threat that should have been smothered in the cradle. The words sliced through me sharper than claws. But before he could drag me into the shadows, a voice boomed across the hall, filled with the weight of absolute command. Release her. The sound froze Valen mid-step. His head jerked up and I turned too, my heart lurching. Alpha King Kale stood at the far end of the hall. His storm-gray eyes locked on me with a force that made it hard to breathe. Around him, his warriors surged toward the southern rogues, blades flashing and fur bristling, but Kale himself remained fixed in place, his presence like a wall of iron. She's my Pax Omega, Valen stammered, forcing his voice steady. It's my duty to. Kale's gaze sharpened, dangerous as lightning. Do not mistake cruelty for duty, Beta. I will not repeat myself. Release her. For a moment, Valen hesitated. And in that heartbeat my fear twisted into something else. Something stronger. A voice's power. The words echoed inside me, louder now, not my grandmother's whisper but something that rose from deep within my bones. I closed my eyes. And I sang. The first note was sharp, clear, cutting through the noise of battle like an arrow. Valen recoiled as though struck, his hand flying from my arm. Gasps rippled around me. Even the clash of steel and the snarls of wolves faltered. I sang again louder. The melody wasn't gentle this time. It wasn't a lullaby. It was something raw and primal, a song that demanded attention, that bent the very air to its rhythm. Valen staggered back, clutching his head. His lips parted in a silent cry, his knees buckling. Wolves across the hall froze mid-battle, their eyes wide, their weapons lowering. Even the rogues hesitated, confusion flickering across their snarling faces. Kale's expression shifted. The storm in his eyes roared higher, but instead of resistance there was something else. My voice rose higher, carrying the weight of 6 years of silence, 6 years of rejection, 6 years of being nothing. It poured out of me like fire, uncontainable, undeniable. Wolves dropped their weapons. Some fell to their knees. Others stared blankly, caught in the current of sound. I didn't know what I was doing. I only knew I couldn't stop. Until suddenly silence swallowed me. The last note faded into the rafters, echoing faintly before dissolving. My chest heaved, my throat burning. The hall was still. Valen lay sprawled on the floor, unconscious or worse, his face slack. Warriors blinked, dazed, as though waking from a deep sleep. And Kale stood unmoving, his storm-gray eyes locked on mine. Slowly, deliberately he stepped forward. The crowd parted for him like water. Wolves lowered their eyes, trembling, but Kale never looked away from me. When he stopped before me, the space between us seemed charged, heavy with something neither of us could name. Celine Moonshade, he said, my name rough on his tongue. What are you? My lips trembled. I opened my mouth, but no sound came. I didn't know the answer. But deep in my chest, my voice whispered again. Moon Singer. The hall erupted back into chaos as if a dam had burst. Rogues howled, warriors clashed, and the spell of my song fractured into shards. But Kale didn't move. He stood before me, his expression unreadable, his presence anchoring me as the storm raged. Then in a blur of movement he reached out. His hand closed around my arm, not harsh like Valen's grip but steady, firm, protective. You will stay under my protection, he said, loud enough for those nearest to hear. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Wolves exchanged wide-eyed looks. A rejected Omega? Under the Alpha King's protection? It defied every law, every tradition. But Kale's tone allowed no argument. Era broke free of the crowd at last, her healer's robes streaked with dust and blood. She rushed toward us, panic etched across her face. Celine, are you hurt? What did he? Her words faltered when she saw Kale's hand on me. Her eyes widened, flicking between us in shock. Your sister is safe, Kale told her curtly. You will tend the wounded. I will see to the Omega. Era's lips parted in protest, but the command in his voice silenced her. She glanced at me, worry burning in her gaze, then nodded stiffly and turned toward a fallen warrior. Kale pulled me closer. His touch was firm, not cruel, but it made my pulse race. Come. I stumbled to keep pace as he led me through the battling crowd. Wolves shifted into hulking beasts, their claws raking against stone, their howls filling the hall. The stench of blood and smoke choked the air. We reached a hidden door behind the high table. Kale pressed his palm against the carved wood, and it swung open with a groan. Beyond stretched a narrow passage lit by faint blue crystals embedded in the walls. He pushed me inside first, then followed, shutting the door behind us. The battle's roar muffled instantly, replaced by the hum of silence. The air here was cooler, damp with the scent of stone and earth. I turned to him, my chest tight. Why are you doing this? His storm-gray eyes burned with intensity. Because I've seen what you can do. And I will not let you be torn apart before I understand it. I don't understand it myself, I whispered, clutching the pendant. I've always been told it's a curse. He stepped closer, and though the corridor was narrow, his presence made it feel even smaller. A curse doesn't bring warriors to their knees. A curse doesn't silence rogues mid-attack. Whatever your voice is, it has power. His gaze sharpened. And power is never a curse. It is a weapon. I shivered under his words, torn between fear and something else I couldn't name. Kale moved past me, his shoulders nearly brushing the walls. This way. We followed the passage, our footsteps echoing softly. My mind whirled with questions but none found voice. My throat still burned from the song. Finally we reached a chamber carved deep into the mountain. Unlike the rough tunnels, this place was finished. Polished stone walls, shelves heavy with ancient scrolls and a hearth crackling with fire. "This is the king's sanctuary," Kale said, releasing my arm at last. "No one enters without my permission. You'll be safe here." The word safe felt foreign on my tongue. I stared at him, my voice trembling. "Why me? Why risk your reputation, your power, for me?" His storm-gray eyes softened just slightly. "Because, Celine Moonshade, in all my years as king, nothing has ever affected me the way your voice did tonight." Silence stretched between us, heavy and charged. My heart thudded painfully, my breath shallow. Then a distant crash echoed through the stone walls, followed by a wolf's pained howl. Kale's head snapped toward the sound, his body tensing. "They're pressing deeper," he muttered. His eyes flicked back to me, sharp and commanding. "Stay here. Do not open this door for anyone but me." He moved toward a cabinet, retrieving a silver dagger and pressing it into my hands. The hilt was cold, the blade gleaming. "If they reach you, use this," he said. I stared at the weapon, my hands trembling. "I don't know how." "Then sing," he interrupted, his voice fierce. "Sing and remember, your voice is not a curse. It is the only weapon they fear." And with that he turned toward the heavy door, his form filling the frame. For a heartbeat he hesitated, glancing back at me. "Trust me, Celine," he said quietly. Then he was gone, the door shutting with a resounding thud. And I was alone. The heavy door echoed shut, its iron bolts sliding into place with a sound that felt final. For a moment I simply stood there in the king's sanctuary, the silver dagger clutched in my trembling hands. The firelight from the hearth cast long shadows across the polished stone walls, flickering over shelves crammed with scrolls and books, their spines worn with age. The air smelled of pine smoke, old parchment, and something sharper, like the steel of unsheathed blades. I had never been in a place like this. The Eastern Pax dens were simple, practical, cold. This chamber, it breathed history, secrets, power. It was the kind of place I had only ever imagined, the kind I had no right to step into. Yet here I was. I swallowed hard and lowered the dagger to my lap as I sat by the fire. My hands were still shaking, not from the weight of the weapon but from Kale's words. "Your voice is not a curse. It is the only weapon they fear." The flames cracked and spat. Somewhere above, the mountain groaned with the echoes of battle, distant howls, the clash of steel, the crash of falling stone. Every sound made me flinch, my grip tightening around the dagger's hilt. I pressed my grandmother's pendant to my lips. "Help me," I whispered into the empty chamber. "I don't know what I am. I don't know what to do." The pendant was warm against my skin, almost pulsing. But it gave me no answers. Only silence. I rose and wandered the room, anything to distract my mind from the terror clawing at my chest. The shelves drew me in, lined with scrolls and leather-bound tomes. Many were written in a language I didn't recognize, their ink faded with time. But some were in the common tongue, histories, records, maps. My fingers trailed over them, pausing on one bound in dark red leather. Its spine bore no title, but when I tugged it free, a pressed moonflower slipped from between its pages. The bloom was fragile, its petals brittle and white, but it felt deliberate, left there as a marker. I opened the book. My breath caught. There, in a faded illustration, was a woman standing upon a stone dais. Wolves knelt before her in human form, their eyes raised to her in reverence. From her open mouth swirled silver spirals, curling around each listener like threads of light. And around her neck hung a pendant identical to mine, crescent moon and 3 stars. Beneath the drawing, in faded script, was written, "The last moon singer, Ariella Moonshade, advisor to King Alaric I. She foretold the Great Divide before entering the eternal sleep." Moonshade. My family name. The book slipped from my hands, thudding onto the stone floor. I staggered back, clutching the pendant at my throat. "No," I whispered, shaking my head. That's impossible." But the evidence was there in ink and stone. My grandmother's pendant wasn't just a keepsake. It was a symbol of a bloodline. My bloodline. The air seemed heavier now, pressing down on me. My heart pounded in my ears. Could it be true? Was I descended from these so-called moon singers? Was that why my voice had always been different, why it carried this terrible, wondrous power? And if so, why had my family never spoken of it? Why had my life been nothing but rejection, humiliation, silence? A sudden crash against the door jolted me from my spiraling thoughts. I froze, the dagger instinctively rising in my hand. Another crash. Wood splintered. And then a voice, slurred with drink but sharp with malice, slithered through the crack. I know you're in there, rejected one. Valen. My blood ran cold. The door shuddered under another blow, dust raining from the stone frame. Valen's voice hissed through the growing splinters. Open the door, little songbird. Or I'll break it down. I stumbled backward, my chest heaving. How had he found me? The sanctuary was supposed to be impenetrable. But Valen only laughed, a harsh, humorless sound. Did you think the Alpha King's walls could keep me out? He's too busy spilling blood to guard you himself. And you don't belong here. I pressed my back against the far wall, clutching the dagger so tightly my knuckles ached. Go away, I managed, though my voice quivered. The king will return. The king. His laugh was cruel. Do you think he'll save you? Do you think he truly cares for a cursed Omega? Oh, little bird. You are a weapon, nothing more. And weapons are either wielded or destroyed. The door cracked, a jagged splinter flying across the chamber. Valen's eye appeared in the gap, wild and feverish. You bewitched us all, he snarled. You bewitched him. Do you know how dangerous that makes you? Alpha Thorn should have had you killed years ago. Your grandmother begged for mercy, and look where it's brought us. My breath caught. My grandmother. She had begged? For me. Why? I demanded, my voice trembling with both fear and fury. What are you so afraid of? Valen's grin was twisted, his teeth bared. Afraid? Oh, little bird, we aren't afraid of you. We're afraid of what you represent. The Moon Singers nearly destroyed the balance once. Omegas advising kings, swaying alphas with their voices? Oh, the Pax will never allow it again. The door groaned, the wood buckling. I had seconds before he forced his way in. A voice's power. The words rose in my mind again, not as a whisper this time but as a roar. I clutched the pendant, feeling its warmth burn against my skin. My fear twisted into resolve. I raised my chin. And I sang. Not the gentle lullaby from before. Not the raw, defiant melody I'd unleashed in the hall. This was something older, something buried in my blood, clawing its way to the surface. The sound poured out of me, strange syllables in an ancient tongue I didn't understand yet somehow knew. The melody throbbed with power, vibrating through the stone walls, wrapping around the door. Valen screamed. The crack widened, but instead of forcing his way through, he staggered back, clutching his head. His cries turned from rage to pain, then to silence. When the song ended, I lowered the dagger, my chest heaving. The hall outside was quiet. Too quiet. I crept toward the door and peered through the gap. Valen lay sprawled on the stone floor, his body still, his face slack. His chest rose and fell faintly, alive but unconscious. I had felt him without touching him. My knees nearly buckled. I pressed my hand to the pendant, which now pulsed with a warmth that felt alive. What am I becoming? I whispered into the stillness. The pendant gave no answer, only glowed faintly in the firelight. But deep in my bones I knew the truth. I wasn't cursed. I wasn't broken. I was awakening. And the world would never be the same. Valen's body lay slumped outside the door, his chest still rising and falling. Relief mingled with dread in my stomach. I hadn't killed him, but I'd come close, too close. The memory of his scream echoed in my ears, mingling with the ghost of the melody that had poured from me. I hadn't chosen the song. It had chosen me. The dagger shook in my hand as I stepped back from the door. My knees wobbled, my breath came in shallow gasps. Not a curse, I whispered to myself. Not a curse. But the power I'd unleashed didn't feel entirely like a blessing either. The sanctuary's walls seemed to press in on me, heavy with secrets. The pendant at my throat still pulsed with warmth, as though reminding me, this is what you are. I sank onto a chair near the fire, clutching the dagger with both hands. Kale's words replayed in my mind. Sing and remember, your voice is not a curse. It is the only weapon they fear. And Valen had confirmed it. The Pax feared the Moon Singers, feared Omegas who could command more than submission. But why had my grandmother hidden the truth? Why had she begged for mercy if she knew this power was in me? The chamber's silence was broken by a groan outside the door. My head snapped up. Valen stirred, his body twitching as he fought to wake. Panic shot through me. I scrambled to my feet, dagger raised, heart hammering. His voice came ragged through the splintered wood. "You little witch." I froze, breath caught in my throat. "You think you've won?" His laugh was harsh, choked. "You've only revealed yourself. Do you think the king will protect you forever? Do you think the alphas will kneel to accursed Omega? No." His voice cracked with venom. "They will use you, break you, destroy you. Just like we should have done years ago." Each word struck like claws across my skin. I wanted to deny it, but part of me knew he was right. Power this visible couldn't remain hidden. Valen coughed, blood spattering the stone. "And when they learn what you are, Celine Moonshade, they won't fear you for long. They'll fear what you'll do to them. And fear always turns to fire." The words slithered into me, planting roots of doubt. I gripped the dagger tighter, my hand trembling. "Stay down," I whispered, more to myself than to him. But his voice was fading, already thick with exhaustion. "Your own pack rejected you. The others will reject you too. There is no place for you in this world, Moon Singer." Then silence. His body sagged against the stones, unconscious once more. I pressed my back to the wall, sliding down until I was sitting on the cold floor. The dagger clattered from my grasp. My chest ached, my throat raw. Maybe he was wrong. Maybe Kale's protection meant something. But Valen's warning echoed louder than the battle outside. "No place for you in this world." I closed my eyes, clutching the pendant. "Then I'll make a place," I whispered. "Even if I have to sing it into existence." The clash of steel and the roars of wolves grew louder above me, vibrating through the stone walls of the sanctuary. The battle wasn't ending, it was spreading. I rose to my feet, my decision already made. I couldn't hide here. Not while Kale fought. Not while my sister was somewhere in the hall, risking her life for others. The pendant burned hot against my chest as if urging me forward. I retrieved the dagger, tucking it into my belt, and slipped through the splintered door. Valen lay sprawled in the corridor, unconscious and pale. I stepped over him, my footsteps quick and silent. The passage twisted upward, faintly lit by blue crystals. Each step brought the sounds of battle closer until they were deafening. Snarls, screams, the crack of breaking bones. When I reached the hidden entrance, I hesitated only long enough to take a deep breath. Then I pushed the door open and stepped back into the great hall. Chaos. The tables were overturned, food and wine scattered across the floor, mingling with blood. Wolves fought in both human and shifted forms, bodies colliding with savage force. The air was thick with smoke and the metallic tang of blood. My eyes searched frantically. Where was she? I spotted her at last, crouched beside a fallen warrior, her hands glowing faintly as she worked her healer's magic. Relief surged through me, but it was fragile, she was vulnerable, unprotected. Then my gaze found him. In his wolf form he was massive, black fur gleaming, eyes like storms. He fought back to back with another alpha, tearing through rogues with deadly precision. His movements were a blend of strength and grace, every strike lethal, every step purposeful. But he was surrounded. More rogues poured in, their eyes wild, their fangs snapping. I should have stayed hidden. I should have turned and fled. But my feet carried me forward, weaving between skirmishes, my heart pounding louder than the drums of battle. A voice's power. The words rose again, clear as the firelight. I drew a deep breath and sang. The first note pierced the chaos, ringing high and sharp. Wolves froze mid-clash, their heads snapping toward me. The melody swelled, filling every corner of the hall. A song not of peace this time but of command. Lay down your claws. Lay down your rage. My voice wrapped around them like chains. Rogues staggered, their snarls faltering. Warriors blinked, confusion flickering in their eyes. Even Kale stilled, his massive wolf form lowering his head, his storm-gray gaze locking onto me. I sang louder, my voice trembling with power. The pack is one. The pack is whole. Your enemy is not your kin. The song throbbed in my chest, pulling from a well deeper than my bones. Round me the battle slowed. Wolves dropped their weapons, some collapsing to their knees. Others shifted back into human form, dazed, their faces slack with awe. But not everyone yielded. Through the throng, Alpha Thorn, my pack's leader, the man who had rejected me, pushed forward. His eyes blazed amber, his body half-shifted, his claws dripping blood. "You dare," he snarled, his voice carrying over my song. You dare stand here in front of alphas, in front of kings, and wield that cursed voice? I faltered, my melody cracking. Thorn's gaze burned into me, cruel and triumphant. I should have ended you when you were a child. Your grandmother's pleas were weakness. You are weakness. And tonight I will silence you forever. He lunged. The song tore from my throat in a scream, raw and desperate. Power surged through the hall, slamming into him like a wall of sound. He staggered mid-leap, his claws scraping against stone as he fell to one knee. The room erupted with gasps. Alphas froze, warriors stared, even Kale's wolf form went still. I stood trembling, my voice still ringing in the rafters, my pendant burning like fire against my skin. I had stopped him. Me, the rejected Omega. For a heartbeat, the hall was silent but for my ragged breathing. Then Kale shifted back to human form, his chest heaving, blood streaking his skin. He stepped forward, his storm-gray eyes fixed on me, burning with something fierce and unyielding. Celine, he said, his voice rough. Do not stop. The command sank into me like a spark into dry tinder. And I knew then, this was only the beginning. Alpha Thorn's amber eyes blazed with fury as he struggled against the invisible weight of my song. His claws scraped the stone floor, sparks hissing as he fought to rise. His half-shifted form, elongated limbs, sharp fangs, muscles straining, should have terrified me. Once it would have. But something inside me had changed. My voice hadn't only carried sound, it carried power. And in this moment, Alpha Thorn, my pack's leader, my judge and executioner, was not unstoppable. He was vulnerable. Kale's words still rang in my ears. Do not stop. I pressed one trembling hand to the pendant at my throat, drawing breath deep into my lungs, and let the melody swell again. The sound was raw, primal, as if it rose not from my chest but from the very earth beneath my feet. Children of moon and blood, remember. The pack is one, not five. The blood that binds is older than fear. Thorn roared, his body straining against my song. He managed to push to his feet, teeth bared in a feral snarl. You little witch. His voice cracked like thunder. You think this makes you strong? You are nothing but a broken Omega. A mistake we should have buried long ago. I faltered, the note catching in my throat. Fear clawed at my resolve, the old instinct to lower my head, to shrink, to obey. But then Kale stepped into the circle. His storm-gray eyes locked on Thorn, his presence radiating lethal authority. Careful, Thorn, he said, his voice dangerously soft. You're speaking to the Omega who just silenced an entire battlefield with her song. Murmurs rippled through the gathered wolves. Some alphas bristled, others shifted uncomfortably. Thorn spat onto the blood-stained floor. Her voice is poison. It weakens us. You felt it too, King. Do not deny it. Kale didn't flinch. I felt all, he said simply. The hall erupted in whispers. The Alpha King had admitted all. Thorn snarled, his face twisted with rage. You fool. Don't you see? This isn't all. It's sorcery. The Moon Singers were destroyed for a reason. Their voices wormed into the hearts of alphas, made kings kneel. And you, he jabbed a clawed finger at me, you are their spawn. Gasps rippled like a wave. Moonsinger. The word hung in the air, heavy and dangerous. My breath caught. I had read the name in the book in Kale's sanctuary, but hearing it here, spoken aloud before every alpha and warrior, felt like being stripped bare. Kale's gaze flicked toward me, sharp, assessing. He had known, or at least suspected. But to the others it was revelation. Thorn sneered, sensing their unease. Do you not see the trap? This is no miracle. This is an abomination. The Eastern Pack has carried this cursed bloodline for generations, keeping it hidden, waiting for a fool like you to be enchanted by it. But I will end it here. Tonight. With a roar, Thorn lunged again, his claws slashing through the air. I staggered back, the pendant searing against my skin. My throat ached, but the song rose unbidden, pouring out of me in a desperate cry. The sound struck him mid-leap. His body froze, suspended in air for a heartbeat, before crashing to the ground with a bone-jarring thud. The hall fell silent. Thorn lay gasping, his body twitching, unable to rise. His amber eyes blazed with hatred, but beneath it, fear. Fear of me. I lowered my voice to a trembling whisper, but the sound still carried through the stunned hall. All these years you told me I was cursed. But it was never a curse. It was you who feared me. You who silenced me. My gaze swept the crowd, catching the eyes of wolves from every pack. How many of you believed the same lies? How many of you thought I was worthless because you were told to? What else have they hidden from us? Uneasy murmurs spread, wolves glancing at each other, at their leaders, doubt crackling like sparks across dry grass. Kale's voice cut through the noise, firm and commanding. Enough. All eyes snapped to him. He stood tall, blood streaking his bare chest, his presence unshakable. He looked at me not with fear or suspicion but with something fierce. Something protective. You are no abomination, he said. You are a moon singer. The hall erupted again, shock, disbelief, outrage. And in that storm of voices, I realized there was no going back. The great hall trembled with tension. The alphas shouted, warriors muttered, omegas huddled in confusion. My name, my bloodline, my power, all had been dragged into the open. Kale raised his hand and silence fell, though unease rippled beneath it. His storm-gray eyes swept the room, daring anyone to challenge him. Tonight you all witnessed it, he said, his voice resonant, steady as iron. Her song did not divide us. It stopped bloodshed. It brought rogues to their knees. It saved warriors who would otherwise be dead. He gestured to me. This is not poison. This is power. And power, rightly wielded, can unite us. Thorn snarled from where he knelt, still trembling under the weight of my voice. Unite us? She will enslave us. Her voice bends wills, steals choice. Today it stops a battle. Tomorrow it makes kings bow. Some wolves nodded uneasily, fear glinting in their eyes. My throat tightened. Thorn's words slithered into me like venom. Was he right? Was my song truly mine to control? Or did it control me? The pendant pulsed warm against my chest as if answering. I stepped forward, my knees shaking, my voice small at first. I don't want to enslave anyone. I don't want power for myself. My voice grew stronger, steadier. I only want peace. I closed my eyes and before I could think I began to sing again. This song was unlike the others. Not a lullaby, not a cry of defiance. It rose from deep within me, woven with hope and desperation. The melody filled the hall, wrapping around every heart, not as chains but as threads binding one to another. 5 rivers from one source. 5 paths to one moon. The pack divided is prey. The pack united is strength. The words weren't mine. They were older, ancient, but they flowed from me as if I had always known them. Round me the wolves stirred. Warriors lowered their claws. Betas straightened, their fear softening into wonder. Even omegas lifted their heads, eyes wide. One by one the alphas shifted uneasily. The western alpha, Raoul, silver-haired and scarred, was the first to move. He stepped forward, his voice gravelly but firm. I, Raoul of the western pack, recognize the moon singer. And I will not stand against her. Gasps. Then murmurs of assent. The southern alpha, fierce and half-shifted, bared her teeth but inclined her head. Better to stand with a voice that unites than claws that tear us apart. The forest alpha leaned on his staff, his ancient eyes glowing. The old ways return. Perhaps it is time. Only Thorn raged, thrashing weakly against the invisible weight of my song. Fools. You're bewitched. She will destroy you all. Kale's voice silenced him. No, Thorn. She will destroy the chains that kept us divided. He stepped to my side, his hand brushing mine. And together we will build something new. The hall was silent, hundreds of eyes fixed on us. The rejected Omega and the Alpha King standing side by side. I let the song fade into a soft hum, the echoes lingering like dawn light after night. Wolves shifted, heads bowing. Not in submission but in recognition. The packs were listening. For the first time in generations they were listening together. And I knew then, my voice wasn't just my own. It belonged to them all. The great hall still pulsed with the fading echoes of my song. The air was thick, heavy, as though every wolf inside was holding their breath. Kale stood beside me, his hand brushing mine, storm-gray eyes scanning the crowd. His presence anchored me, but the weight of 100 gazes pressed on my shoulders. The silence broke when Raoul, the scarred Western Alpha, stepped forward. His voice rumbled like gravel dragged across stone. You ask us to trust what we saw here tonight. he said, his silver hair catching the firelight. But what we saw was power strong enough to make alphas hesitate. That is no small thing. His gaze flicked to me. Selene Moonshade, rejected Omega, cursed child. And yet when you sang I felt not weakness but strength. Not chains but possibility. The murmurs swelled. Some nodded. Some shook their heads. The southern alpha, Mira, tall and fierce with braids threaded with wolf teeth, stepped forward next. Her eyes burned like embers. Possibility, yes. But also danger. Do we forget so quickly? The last moon singers bent kings to their will. Wars were fought because of their whispers. Alphas killed their own kin under their influence. Her lips curled back to reveal sharp teeth. What happens when her song doesn't ask for unity but obedience? The words stung because I had thought the same myself. My throat tightened, but Kale's low growl beside me silenced Myra's accusation. Then the forest alpha, old Alder with his crooked staff, shuffled forward. His pale eyes gleamed beneath bushy brows. The danger is real, he rasped, but so is the hope. We sit in a hall dripping with blood from wolves of 5 packs. Blood shed because we could not act as one. And yet, tonight an Omega's voice stopped what claws could not. He raised his staff, tapping it against the stone. Perhaps this is not curse but balance returned. A hush fell. My heart pounded. The old alpha's words struck like a spark in dry tinder. Was that what I was? Balance? But before I could dwell, Thorn's voice slashed through the air. You're fools, he spat, still kneeling under the remnants of my song's weight. His amber eyes burned with hatred. She has poisoned your minds already. Look at you speaking of balance, of hope. This is not your will. It's hers. He pointed a trembling claw at me, his voice cracking with fury. I warned you. She will bring ruin. She will bring war. End her before it's too late. Chaos erupted again, shouts, growls, alphas arguing, warriors muttering. Kale stepped forward, his aura slamming into the hall like a physical force. Silence fell instantly. The decision, he said, his voice low but carrying, is not whether Selene is a threat. He has already proven what she is. The decision is whether we are wise enough to see the gift in it. He looked at each alpha in turn, unyielding. Choose. The silence stretched, taut as a drawn bowstring. Finally Raoul inclined his head. The west stands with the moon singer. Mira hesitated, her jaw clenched. Then slowly she lowered her chin. The south will not oppose her for now. Alder struck his staff again. The forest has already spoken. We will see what balance she brings. All eyes turned to Thorn. He bared his teeth, snarling, his body trembling. Never. The East will never bow to her. She is filth, a stain, a curse. And I will see her throat torn out before I kneel. The words echoed like a death sentence. Kale's hand brushed mine again, his voice pitched low only for me. His time is done. And for the first time I believed it. The hall's tension snapped like a bowstring. Thorn surged upward, breaking free of my fading song with a roar. His body snapped fully into wolf form, amber eyes glowing, fangs glistening, muscles coiled for the kill. He lunged. The crowd erupted in shouts. Warriors drew weapons, alphas braced. But Kale moved first. In a flash his body tore into the black wolf I had seen before. Massive, terrifying, beautiful. He slammed into Thorn midair, the two beasts colliding with a sickening crack. The impact shook the hall. They rolled across the stone floor, claws raking, fangs snapping. Sparks flew as they crashed into overturned tables, splintering wood beneath their weight. Gasps and cries rang out, but no one dared intervene. This was no longer a political debate. This was war boiled down to 2 bodies. One king, one traitor. I staggered back, my pendant burning against my chest, fear and all warring inside me. Kale's black fur gleamed, his massive jaws snapping inches from Thorn's throat. But Thorn was relentless, his amber eyes wild, his claws gouging deep into Kale's side. Blood splattered the stones. Kale. The cry ripped from me before I could stop it. For a heartbeat, Kale's storm-gray eyes flicked toward me even in wolf form. That single glance, filled with fire and determination, steadied me. I drew a breath, my chest aching, and I sang. The song burst from me raw, unpolished, desperate. Not to command. Not to bind. But to empower. Rise, Black Wolf. Rise, storm and shadow. The moon sings with you. The melody threaded through the hole, weaving around Kale's form. His black fur seemed to shimmer, his movements growing sharper, faster. His snarl deepened, reverberating like thunder. Thorn faltered. Just for a moment, but it was enough. Kale surged upward, his jaws clamping down on Thorn's throat. The amber-eyed wolf thrashed, claws raking, but Kale's grip was unbreakable. A hush fell over the hall. Thorn's movements slowed, his snarls weakening. His body slumped, pinned beneath the king's weight. Kale released him at last, stepping back, his black fur slick with blood but his eyes still burning. Thorn lay gasping, defeated, his amber gaze filled with disbelief. "You cannot win," Thorn rasped, his voice half-shifted, broken. "She will destroy you too." Kale shifted back, looming over him in human form, his body bleeding but unbowed. His voice was steady, cutting through the silence like a blade. "No, Thorn. She will destroy the lies that kept us divided." He turned to the crowd, his storm-gray eyes sweeping over every face. "And if that frightens you, then perhaps it is your chains you fear losing, not her song." Silence. Heavy absolute. Then Raoul bowed his head. "The west stands with the king." Alder followed, his staff thudding. "The forest stands." Mira hesitated, then inclined her chin. "The south stands." One by one warriors lowered their weapons. Omegas lifted their eyes. Betas bowed. Only Thorn remained, broken on the floor, his voice a bitter whisper. "This is only the beginning." And then his head fell back, his chest heaving, his eyes rolling closed. Dead? Or only unconscious, I didn't know. But the reign of Thorn, Alpha of the East, was finished. I stood trembling, my throat raw, my pendant searing against my chest. Around me the packs were kneeling, not in fear, not in enchantment, but in recognition. Kale's hand found mine, warm and strong despite the blood streaking his skin. His voice was low for me alone. "This is the dawn, Celine." And though fear still clung to me for the first time in my life, I believed him. The great hall was quiet again, though the silence felt fragile, like glass stretched too thin. Thorn's broken body had been carried away, the bloodstains on the stone floor a stark reminder of how close everything had come to collapse. The Alphas had pledged, at least in word, to stand with Kale. Warriors bowed, Omegas lifted their heads, and for the first time in generations, the possibility of unity trembled in the air. But my throat burned. My voice felt shredded raw from the songs I had poured into the hall. And my heart, it would not stop racing. Kale's hand never left mine until the last wolf left the chamber. Only when the heavy doors shut did he finally exhale, his shoulders loosening, his storm-gray eyes turning to me with something I had never seen before. Not awe. Not curiosity. Something far more dangerous. "Celine," he said softly, and the way my name sounded in his voice made my knees weaken. I swallowed, my lips dry. "You're hurt." His side was slick with blood, the wound from Thorn's claws deep and angry. I moved instinctively, pulling at the sash of my robe, pressing the fabric against the gash. He caught my wrist. "I've survived worse." "Survival isn't enough," I said, sharper than I meant. My voice shook. "You're a king. You can't fall now." "Not after," I faltered, the words dying in my throat. "Not after me." His eyes softened, but his grip stayed firm. "And you're more than I imagined. More than any of us imagined." Heat rushed to my cheeks. I wanted to look away, but his gaze held me. The hall around us was empty, yet it felt full of something thick, unspoken. The forbidden weight of what pressed between us. "You shouldn't say that," I whispered. "They'll think that I've chosen you?" His lips curved, a wolfish smile. "Let them think." I froze, my heart thudding. "Kale, if you bind yourself to me, the packs will never." "They already resist," he interrupted. "They already whisper. It is not your presence that makes them fear, Celine. It is their weakness." I pressed harder on his wound, trying to hide the trembling in my hands. And what if it's true? What if my voice isn't mine to control? What if Thorn was right? Kale leaned closer, so close I could feel the heat of his breath against my cheek. His voice dropped to a growl. "Then let me bear that risk with you." The words sank into me, heavy and undeniable. My throat tightened, my chest aching with something I didn't have a name for. "Kale." His hand moved from my wrist to my cheek, his thumb brushing the edge of my jaw. "You don't see it yet, do you? Your voice may bend others, but it doesn't bend me. You don't control me, Celine. You awaken me. My breath hitched. The room seemed to tilt, the firelight blurring. For a moment I let myself imagine it. What it would mean to be bound to him, not by rejection but by choice, by something deeper than song or fate. But reality clawed back in. The packs, the fear, the whispers of conspiracy still lingering in the hall. I stepped back, pulling from his touch. It's forbidden. My voice cracked. If you choose me, they'll see it as proof that I've bewitched you. They'll never follow. Cale's jaw tightened, frustration flashing in his eyes. But he didn't argue. He only nodded once, sharp and restrained. Then we will wait, he said, his voice low. But know this, Celine Moonshade, your song may belong to the packs, but your heart, his eyes darkened, that belongs to me. My chest burned. My lips parted, but no words came. And in the silence that followed, the forbidden bond between us tangled tighter, unseen but unbreakable. The next day dawned heavy with smoke. The battle outside the hall had ended, the rogues driven back into the wilds, but their attack had left scars. The once proud gates lay in splinters, and the scent of blood lingered in the corridors. Cale held council in the upper chamber, his voice steady as he commanded the rebuilding. Warriors patrolled in tighter rotations. Omegas tended the wounded. Betas carried messages across the lands. And yet unease still slithered in the air. I saw it in the sideways glances, the hushed whispers when I passed. Wolves who had bowed their heads last night now avoided my eyes. Warriors who had once looked at me with indifference now looked with suspicion, or hunger. The word had spread. Moonsinger. Era cornered me near the healer's quarters, her golden eyes sharp with fear. Celine, what are you doing? She hissed, dragging me into the shadows. Do you know what they're saying? I stiffened. I know. They think you've bewitched the king. They think every word that leaves his mouth is because of your song. She gripped my hands, her voice trembling. This is dangerous. You have to leave. Tonight. My chest tightened. Leave? I can't. You saw what happened last night. My voice stopped Thorn. It brought them together. Her eyes filled with tears. And it painted a target on your back. You think the other packs will let you live now? They'll smile in the hall, but in the shadows they're already plotting. I opened my mouth to deny it, but movement in the corridor silenced me. 2 warriors passed, their whispers sharp as knives. She's dangerous. The king can't see it. If she binds him, we're all slaves. They didn't notice me in the alcove, but their words carved into my chest. When they were gone, Era's grip tightened. Please, Celine. You're my sister. I can't lose you. I closed my eyes, swallowing hard. Fear coiled in me like smoke. But beneath it, something stronger stirred. No, I whispered. Running won't save me. Or you. Or any of us. The only way out of this is forward. Era's lips parted in protest, but before she could speak, a horn blast split the air. The alarm. We rushed to the hall, the sound of pounding feet and shouting voices filling the corridors. Cale was already there, standing tall at the head of the table, his storm-gray eyes hard. Scouts report movement in the northern woods, a warrior barked. Not rogues. Organized. Armed. They fly the banner of the Broken Fong. Murmurs erupted, shock, fear, anger. The Broken Fong was a faction long thought crushed, rebels who rejected the Alpha King's rule. Cale's jaw tightened. They move now because they smell weakness. They believe Thorn's fall has fractured us. They are wrong. But as he spoke, my gaze flicked to the alphas gathered around the table. Raoul's face was grim, Alder's unreadable, Myra's lips pressed thin. None of them looked ready for war. And in the shadows behind them, I caught the briefest glint of a smirk from one of Thorn's old lieutenants. The rebellion wasn't only outside the walls. It was already here. The night was restless. Torches lined the walls of the great hall, their flames shivering though there was no wind. The alphas had gathered again, seated at the long stone table, their faces grim under the flickering light. Cale stood at the head, every line of his body sharp with tension. I sat to his right, my presence tolerated but not welcomed, eyes darting toward me with suspicion and unease. My throat still ached from the songs I'd sung, but I could feel the power in me simmering like a storm beneath my skin. The scouts' reports were worse than we feared. The Broken Fong had gathered more wolves than expected, An army drawn not only from the north but from deserters across the territories. They would strike soon. Their leader was Thorn's ally, Raoul said, his scarred hand drumming the table. Do not mistake this for a rogue uprising. This is vengeance. Mira snorted, her braids clinking with beads. Vengeance, yes. But also opportunity. They will claim the east is unsteady, that the throne wavers. And unless we prove otherwise, wolves will flock to their banner. Kale's storm-gray eyes narrowed. Then we prove it. We face them head-on. We show the packs there is no weakness here. His words rang with authority, but I could feel the unease humming beneath them. Even now loyalty wavered. The broken Fong's shadow stretched long. I shifted in my seat, fingers brushing my pendant. What if we didn't need to fight? My voice was soft but carried in the silence. What if we could stop them before the blood is spilled? All eyes turned to me. Some sharp with interest. Others with contempt. You would sing to them? Myra's voice dripped with disdain. As you did to us? Heat rose to my cheeks. It worked here. It stopped the rogues. It stopped Thorn. And what happens when the song fades? Mira leaned forward, her teeth bared in a mocking smile. Will you stand in every hall, every battlefield, every night until your throat bleeds dry? Your voice is not eternal, moon singer. And once they see the cracks in your magic, they will tear you apart. Her words cut deep, but before I could respond, Alder's staff tapped against the stone floor. She speaks truth, though not kindly. The girl cannot be everywhere. The power must be used wisely, not squandered like wine at a feast. Kale's jaw tightened. Enough. His voice silenced the murmurs. He looked at me, his gaze fierce. Your song may stop one battle, but it will not end a war. We must prepare to fight. I lowered my eyes, swallowing my protest. Perhaps he was right. Perhaps my hope was nothing but naivety. The council dissolved into orders and assignments, warriors rushing to their posts, scouts dispatched to track enemy movement. The hall emptied until only Kale, Aira and I remained. My sister moved to me, her healer's robes stained with ash and blood. You can't keep giving yourself like this, Celine. You'll burn out. Her golden eyes pleaded with me. Let them fight their war. You don't owe them your voice. But I did. I felt it deep in my bones, in every note that had poured from my throat. My voice wasn't just mine. It belonged to them all. Before I could answer, the heavy doors creaked. A group of Kale's guards entered, carrying trays of food and drink. At first I thought nothing of it, until I caught the glint of a dagger hidden under one servant's sleeve. My breath caught. Kale! I shouted. The dagger flashed. The guard lunged, not at Kale but at me. Time slowed. I stumbled back, my chair crashing to the floor. Kale roared, shifting half into wolf form as he threw himself between us. The blade sank deep into his side, blood spilling hot across the stone. No. My scream ripped from my throat. Chaos erupted. Real guards surged in, weapons clashing with traitors. Aira shrieked as a second assassin lunged toward her, and I barely managed to fling myself into his path, the dagger at my belt clumsy in my grip. But I didn't need steel. I sang. The melody exploded raw, jagged, torn from my chest with fury and terror. The assassin staggered mid-strike, his dagger clattering to the floor. His eyes rolled back, his body crumpling at my feet. Around me the traitors fell one by one, stunned and broken under the weight of my song. But Kale was bleeding. I dropped to my knees beside him, my hands shaking as I pressed them against the wound. Blood poured through my fingers, hot and sticky. His storm-gray eyes met mine, filled with pain but burning with determination. Celine, he rasped. No, I whispered, my tears falling onto his chest. Stay with me. Please. My voice cracked, but I began to sing again. Not a song of power, not of command, but of healing. A melody my grandmother had hummed over fevers and broken bones. The sound trembled, faltered, but I clung to it, pouring every shred of myself into the notes. And slowly the bleeding slowed. The torn flesh knit together. The trembling in his body eased. Kale's eyes softened, his hand rising weakly to touch my cheek. You saved me. I choked on a sob. Always. But even as relief surged, I knew the truth. This attack wasn't random. It wasn't desperation. It was betrayal. The enemy wasn't only outside the walls. It was already within them. The night bled into morning. The traitors' bodies were dragged from the hull, their blood mopped from the stone. Kale lived, though pale, his strength not fully returned. Era tended him while I paced, my pendant burning against my skin. Whispers spread like wildfire. The moon singer had healed the king with her voice. The moon singer had unveiled traitors in their midst. Some voices hailed me as savior. Others hissed I was the root of the danger itself. By dawn the horn sounded. The broken Fong had come. Wolves poured into the valley outside the shattered gates, their banners snapping in the wind. Their leader stood at the front. A massive wolf with thorns scar carved across his chest, his eyes alight with hunger for vengeance. The packs gathered on the battlements, tension crackling like lightning. Kale, pale but unbroken, took his place at the front, his storm-gray eyes steady. I stood beside him, my throat dry, my heart pounding. "This is the moment," he said quietly, his gaze never leaving the enemy line. "One voice, one choice. End this before it begins." Fear clawed at me. Could my song reach beyond the hull, beyond the stone walls, into the hearts of wolves who had already chosen rebellion? I pressed the pendant to my lips. "Guide me." Then I stepped forward. The valley stretched wide before me, filled with snarling wolves, their teeth bared, their claws gleaming. My voice was a whisper at first, barely a thread of sound. But it grew. It grew until it rose above the clamor, above the growls and roars, rising like the first light of dawn spilling over the horizon. "O children of the moon, O pack of 5 and 1. Blood divides but the song remembers. You are not enemies. You are kin." The melody swept across the battlefield. Wolves faltered mid-snarl, their eyes blinking, their muscles slackening. Some collapsed to their knees. Others shifted back, their weapons falling from their hands. The rebel leader snarled, shaking his massive head as though to resist. But the song curled around him too, pressing into his bones, into his blood. His roar broke into a whimper, his body trembling. And then silence. Thousands of wolves knelt, their heads bowed, their fury stilled. The valley was quiet but for the echo of my song. When I stopped, the world seemed to hold its breath. Kale stepped forward, his voice carrying like thunder. "The war is over. The packs are united. No more division. No more lies. Today we stand as one." The wolves lifted their heads, their eyes shining not with rage but with something new, hope. And then one by one they knelt. Not to Kale alone. Not to me alone. To us. The rejected Omega and the Alpha King. The dawn song had risen. And the world would never be the same. And so the dawn song rose. But the story doesn't end here. If Celine's journey stirred something in you, let your voice be heard. Like this video, share your thoughts in the comments and join our pack by subscribing. The next chapter awaits and you don't want to miss it.